All right, welcome back to Fantasy Files 1054 or FFX54 for short. We got Week 8 wide receiver rankings coming at you today. And we had our running back ranking video for Week 8 come live yesterday. So if you haven't seen that already, check that out. But we're going to get right into this and try to fly through these and get these out to you in a timely manner. I know I always say that. I said that yesterday with the running back ranking video, and it ended up being a 45-minute video. So it still stands where if you enjoy the more thought out and the more information, longer videos, let me know in the comments below. And if you like the shorter kind of rapid fire style videos, let us know that as well down below. But when you like the video, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel so you get notified, or I guess go ahead and hit the notification bell as well so that you do get notified when we have a running back ranking or wide receiver ranking video go live on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we also go live Sunday morning before kickoff, with the exception of this week. I have some friends over for a Halloween party, so we won't be live this Sunday, but every other Sunday from then on out, we will be live. So come hang out. Without further ado, we're going to get right into the wide receiver ranking videos, starting off with our tried and true Cooper Kupp versus the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not worried about the matchup at all. It looks like the 49ers are actually kind of middle of the pack, allowing 33.9 fantasy points to this position. But Cooper Kupp, kind of same deal every single week. We're jamming him into our lineups. He's going to give you anywhere from 20 to 35 points, and that's something that we're going to want a piece of every single week. So not much to be said there. Cooper Kupp as our number one. Right behind Cooper Kupp, we have Justin Jefferson coming off of the bye. Cooper Kupp was also off of a bye as well. So both of them coming off a fresh leg, coming out of the bye with fresh legs, as well as our number 3 also coming off of a bye. But again, Justin Jefferson, not much to be said here. The Arizona Cardinals are actually a little bit more of a difficult matchup than you would probably speculate, or at least me, I didn't really know that the Arizona Cardinals defense was as stout as it actually is. But in both the running back stats, which I'm showing you on screen now, so you see the Cardinals here, top of the pack, and then if you look at the wide receivers, they also have a very solid showing there as well. So Arizona Cardinals are not the best matchup for the wide receiver position, but these guys are matchup proof. And we're not worrying about it. We're throwing them into our lineup. They're always going to have that upside. So Justin Jefferson versus Arizona as our number 2. Right behind Justin Jefferson, we have Stefon Diggs versus the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Green Bay Packers, yes, they have Jair Alexander, and they do have a top, 6-7 defense going up against the wide receiver position. But again, same applies to Stefon Diggs. He's matchup proof. The matchup may come into question as far as how high his ceiling is. But regardless, Stefon Diggs is going to be that top 3 play that's given us the best chance at giving us a top fantasy point production week. So Stefon Diggs is going to be our number 3 with not much thought there. Right behind Stefon Diggs, not coming off of a bye, but we do have Tyreek Hill. He had a little bit quieter of a week last week. Let me go ahead and see what he actually ended up with at the end of the week last week. So he ended up with 14 points. So when your wide receiver is getting 13 targets for 72 receiving yards and giving you 14.2 points, and that's a quiet week. And when that same player is going up against the Detroit Lions, who are showing 34.7 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, but they also put up a lot of points. One thing we have to think about is the Detroit Lions had a very quiet week last week, but they have DeAndre Swift. He was back to practice today. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, if he clears concussion protocol, they're going to have all their weapons back, which will allow them to put up a lot of points. And when you're playing against a team that is putting up a lot of points against you, it's very good to have the wide receivers in that matchup so that you can hopefully get a piece of the barn burning action. And Tyreek Hill is the perfect suited wide receiver for that. So with Tyreek Hill going up against the Detroit Lions, we have a very good matchup. Again, Tua is back. He did well last week. And this is something that we're not going to have to think about. And we'll have him as our number 4 on the week. Right behind Tyreek Hill, we have Jamar Chase going up against the Cleveland Browns, which is kind of a middle whatever matchup we like to say. But it's looking like the Cincinnati Bengals offense is starting to understand what their identity is, which surprisingly, shocker, it's not running the ball up the middle with a bad offensive line and Joe Mixon. It turns out the formula is the formula that they used all year last year to get to the Super Bowl, which it just aired out to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd for that matter. So it's looking like Joe Burrow is back into last year form. They're getting over their Super Bowl hangover. Jamar Chase is putting up numbers. T. Higgins is putting up numbers. Tyler Boyd's putting up numbers. And as a result of that, we talked about it in yesterday's video. That's actually beneficial for Joe Mixon as well. So this offense is really getting into stride. And understanding what their identity is, and going up against the Cleveland Browns defense, allowing 31.7 fantasy points per game to this position. We're going to put Jamar Chase as our number 5 on the week. Right behind Jamar Chase, we have Davante Adams going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, it's looking like the New Orleans Saints are actually one of the best matchups you can ask for. Let me see. I'm just going to look it up now. If Marshawn Lattimore is going to be available for the New Orleans Saints defense coming into this week, because I know he did miss last week in that matchup. So Lattimore has been ruled out of Thursday's matchup. That was last week. So it's looking like he had an abdomen issue, which is kind of interesting. And I'm seeing that here. There's a report 3 hours ago that Jarvis Landry and Marshawn Lattimore are among the starters not seen at practice. So it's very possible Marshawn Lattimore misses. And the reason that that's so important to Davante Adams' production is if this is a team that's allowing 38.6 fantasy points per game with/without Marshawn Lattimore, if we have a confirmation that Marshawn Lattimore's not going to be there, this is going to be a smash play for Davante Adams, especially since the New Orleans Saints have a pretty decent run-in defense. So it's going to really push the needle towards a passing game, which will be perfect for Davante Adams in this matchup. So we'll have him as our number 6 of the week. Right behind Davante Adams, we have DeAndre Hopkins coming back where he should be at the top of our list. He came back and got a barrage of targets from Kyler Murray with Marquise Brown on IR right now with that, I think it's an ankle injury. So DeAndre Hopkins, I'm giving you the targets right here. He comes back after being suspended for 6 games and gives us 20 fantasy points with 14 targets, 10 receptions, and 100 yards. We've said it before. We'll say it again. The Arizona Cardinals they kind of play their offensive possessions like it's a game of Madden in the sense that they're running as many plays as possible. So that's why these fantasy players on the Arizona Cardinals are showing so many targets and so much opportunity. So DeAndre Hopkins being one of the best receivers in the league, still, he proved it to us last week. He's going to be our number 7 for this week going up against the Minnesota Vikings, who are kind of middle of the pack, allowing 34.6 fantasy points per game to the position. Right behind DeAndre Hopkins, we have A.J. Brown going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in a very juicy matchup, allowing 42.8 fantasy points to the wide receiver position. They're coming off of a bye, very fresh, rested up, and A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts are looking like one of the most, even Davante Adams, you can throw him into that conversation. They're looking like the most dangerous team in the entire NFL. So this is a player that we're going to want every single piece of that we can get. This is a team or an offense for that matter. Actually, I'll say the whole team because even the defense has some fantasy relevance. So this team we're going to want as many parts of it as we possibly can. And going up against the 3rd worst defense to the wide receiver position, this is going to be a smash play at number 8 for A.J. Brown. Right behind A.J. Brown, we have Jaylen Waddle directly under his cohort. I don't know why I said cohort. His wide receiver 1 and Tyreek Hill. Kind of the same that applies to Jaylen Waddle that applied to Tyreek Hill. Detroit Lions, a very juicy matchup, getting their offensive weapons back to be able to hold their own. Jaylen Waddle and Tua do have that connection, rooting all the way back to college, and we saw it last week. He's getting the targets that we're used to seeing for Jaylen Waddle out of this Miami Dolphins offense. So Jaylen Waddle is in a very good spot in week 8 to give us a solid fantasy productive week. I got to find a better way to say that. Every time I say it, it sounds weird. Fantasy production week, like that doesn't make sense. But anyways, moving on, tangent. If you got any ideas, throw them in the comments for me. I actually got some really good feedback in the comments in the running back ranking video yesterday. So keep the feedback coming. I love to see it. And we incorporated the change that was suggested pretty much immediately. So I do read those comments and I take those suggestions very seriously. But regardless, we're going to move on to CeeDee Lamb as our number 10 on the week going up against the Chicago Bears. We talked about it last week. I keep wanting to point this out. Chicago Bears are a good secondary, especially going up against the wide receiver position, only allowing 26.5 fantasy points to the position. And this Dak Prescott offense, or passing game, maybe I should say, just doesn't look the same. I don't know what it is. I'm starting to see reports that Jerry Jones wants to get Dak Prescott involved in more RPOs, and I don't think that the Dallas Cowboys offense knows what their identity is. And with Cooper Rush, it was very obvious that their identity was to not screw it up and let the defense handle it, which is what they kind of did that last week, but it was a way closer game than it should have been, especially going up against the Detroit Lions offense that didn't have DeAndre Swift and didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know the score has a large delta, but the game, if you watched it, was a lot closer than the score leads you to believe. So until I see Dak Prescott start to give us really any good, productive game in regards to fantasy or just in regards to NFL football, I can't really rank CeeDee Lamb any higher than this, especially in a very tough matchup. So CeeDee Lamb's going to be our number 10 on the week. Right behind CeeDee Lamb, we have Mike Evans going into the Thursday night primetime game against the Baltimore Ravens at Tampa. I know that they had a very bad week last week going up against the Carolina Panthers with that massive drop that Mike Evans had. But I don't know how long I can say this for. And I keep giving Tom Brady and the Buccaneers chance after chance. They keep disappointing. But if a very bad game for Mike Evans, kind of the same applies to Mike Evans as we were talking earlier to Tyreek Hill. If a very bad game is 15 targets, 96 receiving yards, and 18.6 fantasy points, then that's something that we're going to want a piece of. Because if you can imagine if he caught the long touchdown bomb in the beginning of the game, he would have had a 25-plus fantasy point game. So Mike Evans is in a position to have a get-right game against my Baltimore Ravens on Thursday night. So we're going to have Mike Evans as our number 11. Let me let the dog in. Hi. Hi, Zena. All right, right behind Mike Evans, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown against Miami. Now, this is contingent on the fact that there is that concussion lingering for Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's currently questionable. We don't know if he's going to clear concussion protocol just yet. He was limited at practice on Wednesday is the report I'm reading right now. So we have to stay tuned. You guys got to remember that I'm recording this on Wednesday. So we're going to have a better idea if he's going to play when Sunday comes around. But for now, with this looming injury, we're going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown knocked down to the number 12 on the week. With DeAndre Swift coming back. Now, if Amon-Ra is fully healthy and DeAndre Swift ends up playing, this offense is going to be a lot more productive than we've seen in the past 2 weeks, and it'll allow more red zone trips for Amon-Ra St. Brown to capitalize on. So look for Amon-Ra St. Brown to get back on track to his late last season, early this season trajectory if he is able to play. So Amon-Ra St. Brown will be the number 12 on week 8. Right behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, we have T. Higgins. Again, same applies to T. Higgins as we talked about with Jamar Chase, just a watered-down version. We know the volume is going to consistently be there for T. Higgins as long as he's healthy, which he is going to be healthy heading into this game with no injury designation. Last week, we saw 7 targets and 93 yards. Week before that, we saw 9 targets. Week before that he did play, we saw 9 targets, 7 targets, 10 targets. So T. Higgins, when healthy, is going to be a very good fantasy football option for you in your starting lineup. And there really should be no questions asked leading into a matchup that's kind of middle of the pack, not really bringing us down at all, especially with this Bengals offense on an upwards trajectory for the passing game. So T. Higgins is going to be the number 13 on the week. Right behind T. Higgins, we have Chris Godwin. Having Chris Godwin and Mike Evans this high in our rankings after the week that they had last week kind of shows you how I feel this game will go on prime time. I think that the reason last week went so poorly is they kind of just chalked it up as an easy dub, didn't really give the preparation that they needed, as well as Tom Brady dealing with his personal issues. But Tom Brady on prime time against Lamar Jackson, I think that they rise to the occasion. And I think Chris Godwin, when he's averaging over 10 targets a game in this offense, he's going to be in a really good spot to succeed for your fantasy team. So week 8, we will have Chris Godwin at number 14. Right behind Chris Godwin, we have Deebo Samuel. I'm sure some of you out there are wondering why Deebo Samuel is appearing this late in the ranking video, but we have him dealing with a hamstring injury, and he was limited, or maybe he was out. Hold on, let me see if he was out or limited in practice. He did not practice. So currently on Wednesday, he was not practicing. It doesn't look like this is going to affect his status for the game currently. So I'm still banking that he does play. But now with Christian McCaffrey coming in, we don't know what that offense is going to look like when he has a full workload. And with Deebo Samuel having this injury kind of lingering in the background, like even if he does play, they still know that that injury is there, and they're going to nurse it to a certain degree, especially when you have people like George Kittle, Brandon Aiyuk, and Christian McCaffrey to pick up the slack. So going up against the Los Angeles Rams that are allowing 36 fantasy points per game to this position, I think that Deebo Samuel has a lot more watered down of a game than we're used to seeing, even though he hasn't given us any kind of what we were looking for when you had him last season. But Deebo Samuel, with the injury, with all of the other weapons they have on the offense, now we're going to bump him down to the number 15 for week 8. But again, same applies that applied to Amon-Ra St. Brown, or really any injury for that matter. This video is recorded on Wednesday. Make sure you're keeping an eye on this. And if you have any questions or concerns, usually you can come and hang out with us early Sunday morning before the kickoff. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is going to be an off week for us because we have people coming into town. So I won't be live this Sunday, but in the future, that's really what that live stream is for, is to come in and make sure that your lineups are still valid, as opposed to these rankings based on the news that we get from when I record the video to Sunday morning. Right behind Deebo Samuel at number 16, we have Michael Pittman Jr. I don't know what this new quarterback is going to look like. And to be honest with you, I don't even know his name. It says that Matt Ryan is being benched due to an injury, which very well may be the case. But they've also said that Matt Ryan is not going to be the starter moving forward. We had Nick Foles move up to the backup, and then this new, I think it was like a 6th-round draft pick in 2021. He's never thrown the football in a professional football game, so I don't really know what to expect for Michael Pittman's production. I don't think it can get much worse. Matt Ryan had the highest turnover differential in the entire league with fumbles and interceptions, so it can't really get a whole lot worse than that, especially when you're having Matt Ryan check the ball down 12 times to Paris Campbell and Jonathan Taylor, and not really taking those deep shots. So I don't think that this quarterback switch necessarily hurts the value of Michael Pittman a whole lot, but we're going to have him conservatively ranked this week just until we see what is going on with this Colts offense and the new look at quarterback. So Michael Pittman is going to be our number 16 on the week. Right behind Michael Pittman, we have Chris Olave. I just read to you in the Davante Adams section that it looks like Jarvis Landry is still missing practice. It looks like Michael Thomas is still questionable, and we don't have a quarterback designation quite yet. But we've seen Chris Olave succeed last week with Andy Dalton and previously in this earlier portions of the season with Jameis Winston. So I don't think that the quarterback has a huge factor on where we're ranking Chris Olave. Just the fact that Michael Thomas is still dealing with an injury and Jarvis Landry is also dealing with an injury. Chris Olave is going to get all of that volume. And even if they were there, I still think Chris Olave is getting a good amount of volume and a very large number of air yards. So Chris Olave is in a very good spot, and he's continuing to kind of chip away at the rankings week by week. He's moving his way up. So Chris Olave is going to be the number 17 on week 8. Right behind Chris Olave, we have Tyler Lockett versus the New York Giants. He got a major bump up this week in our rankings, not because of matchup, obviously. Obviously, the New York Giants are a very difficult matchup when it comes to the wide receiver position, only allowing 25.8 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, but DK Metcalf is dealing with that injury. The good news is that DK Metcalf's injury isn't as long-term as it looked when we saw him get carted off the field last Sunday. It actually says he participated in walkthroughs on Wednesday, but he's not going to play this week, or at least I highly doubt it. And if he does not play, then that means Tyler Lockett's volume share is going to go up quite a bit. Godwin, I think Marquise Godwin is going to be someone that you possibly could stream or put in your DFS lineup. But for the majority of the volume, we're looking at Tyler Lockett to consume a lot of that. So Tyler Lockett is going to be our number 18 on week 8. even in a difficult matchup. Right behind Tyler Lockett, we have Amari Cooper, also in a difficult matchup going up against the Cincinnati Bengals, and having Jakobi Brissett as his quarterback. Amari Cooper has been one of those players that has given you boom or bust performances, but more booms than busts. So Amari Cooper is that wide receiver 1, and he is on that the upwards trajectory with Deshaun Watson. His return in the nearer future, week by week, getting closer and closer. So Amari Cooper is definitely someone you want to be looking to grab if you possibly can. But for this week, going up against a difficult matchup, we're going to have Amari Cooper as our number 19. Right behind Amari Cooper, we have Gabe Davis, also coming off of a bye, going up against the Green Bay Packers, also in a difficult matchup. I don't think the matchup is as much of a concern with Gabe Davis, because what we've been seeing with Gabe Davis is he's that home run hitter player, and also is going to be a boom or bust. If I can just remind you really quick what Gabe Davis's production has been like in the beginning portion of this season, this is what we're looking at. We are looking at 6 targets, 6 targets, 3 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. So nothing too crazy in the volume department. But here, if you look on the right, you're seeing 18.8 points, boom, 6.7, 2.3 bust, 32.1 fantasy points on 3 receptions, and then 16.4 fantasy points on 3 receptions. So it's a very nerve-wracking play and a very volatile player at that. So that's why we have him ranked as low as we do. But when this volatility is presenting that very high upside in arguably the best offense in the entire NFL, that's going to be someone that we're going to want to throw into our lineups regardless. So Gabe Davis is going to be our number 20 on the week. Number 21 is going to be Christian Kirk going up against the Denver Broncos. Now, I think I said it. No, I haven't said it yet. It says versus Denver, like at Denver, but it's not at Denver. And the same is going to apply to Courtland Sutton's ranking. This is going to be in London at 9:30 a.m., which is always going to be kind of an interesting twist to the matchup. But Denver Broncos are going to represent a very difficult matchup to the passing game. The reason we still are allowed or are able to put Christian Kirk this high in our rankings is because of that red zone potential that he does always have on a week-to-week basis. We see Christian Kirk not giving us the volume that we were getting at the beginning of the season, even though we did get 10 targets last week and a carry, it looks like. But he's getting that high amount of targets in the red zone with 2 touchdowns, 1 and 1. So he's got a total of 4 on the season. And it's looking like this offense is on an upward trajectory. They kind of stalled out there for a couple weeks, but they're back on track, and Christian Kirk is going to be a beneficiary of that. And it's also looking... the Jacksonville Jaguars have played in London more so than anybody else, and I've heard rumors that Jacksonville is looking to move their team over to London. And the only reason I say this is because they might be a little bit more comfortable because they have more experience. So maybe the London game doesn't affect them as much as it would affect someone like Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. So Christian Kirk is going to be our number 21 on the season. I mean, on week 8. Right behind Christian Kirk, we have DeVonta Smith, another boomer bust player. It's definitely someone that is going to be a must start for us, coming off of a bye in the best or one of the best offenses in the entire league. Always giving you that super high upside, and even sometimes he's giving you wide receiver 1 type performances on the team as opposed to AJ Brown. So the targets that we've seen are 4, 7, 12, 4, 11, and 5. So the volume is there, but not consistent. So with that volatility, we're going to have him ranked at 22 on the week. Behind DeVonta Smith, we have Terry McLaurin still with Taylor Heineke, which is, again, going to be very good. It is the toughest matchup of the week. Going up against the Indianapolis Colts, only allowing 23.5 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. But one thing we know about Taylor Heineke, he's not worried about airing it out to Terry McLaurin. It's the player that he was throwing to last season when he had the starting role. So Terry McLaurin, even though Heineke is going to throw interceptions, he's also going to throw big bombs to his receiver, Terry McLaurin. And that's something that we're going to want to try and capitalize on, even with the difficult matchup. So Terry McLaurin will be our number 23. Behind Terry McLaurin, we have Courtland Sutton, another player that's continuing to fall down our ranks with Russell Wilson and the uncertainty at the quarterback position and really the entire offense over there. We saw early production for Courtland Sutton in this season, but with Russell Wilson looking like he's going to play off of this injury and Jerry Jeudy starting to get more targets last week, we're not too sure about what Courtland Sutton's rest of season production is going to look like. If we look back at Jerry Jeudy's production on the past 3 weeks, we've seen 8 targets, 7 targets, and 11 targets last week with 96 yards. So this is taken away from Courtland Sutton's productivity. Now, I will say Courtland Sutton is still going to be that red zone target in this offense, but he's going to take a dramatic step back than what we were used to seeing in the first 6 weeks of the season. So Courtland Sutton is going to be our number 24 on the week. Again, not at Jacksonville. He's going to be in London. Right behind Courtland Sutton, we have Brandin Aiyuk. And I'm going to show you this one because I didn't believe it myself when I first saw it. But over the past 2 games, we've seen Brandin Aiyuk give us 11 targets from Jimmy Garoppolo, resulting in 28 fantasy points and 15 fantasy points. But then if you look at his season as a whole, it's a lot more solid than I originally thought. We have 6-point dud, but then we have 11, 12, 7, 8, 28, 15. So he's starting to become a player that is startable on a week-to-week basis. Whoa, what happened? He's a player that's starting to become startable on a week-to-week basis. There we go. And with this lingering Deebo Samuel hamstring injury, this might bump his value up a little bit. Now, you have to remember that the Los Angeles Rams are allowing 36 fantasy points per game. So even though they have Jalen Ramsey, they're not as productive on the defensive side of the ball as we once thought they were, at least to the wide receiver position in the passing game. So going up against this matchup with Deebo Samuel having that hamstring injury lingering in the background and Brandin Aiyuk's productivity and volume starting to take an uptick over the past couple weeks, we're going to have Brandin Aiyuk as our number 25. Behind Brandin Aiyuk, we have DJ Moore earning himself a spot on the top 30 ranking video once again with a big performance last week with PJ Walker. I don't know if PJ Walker is going to be starting again, but going up against the Atlanta Falcons as the worst matchup to the wide receiver position, allowing 46.5 fantasy points per game. And if you think about it, this Carolina offense has nobody else to give the ball to anymore. Robbie Anderson got traded. Christian McCaffrey got traded. And there's really no other pieces here. So DJ Moore is going to basically get all of the volume in this very good matchup. So he's actually someone that I will be starting in my lineup over Deontay Johnson. So that gives you a gauge of how I feel about DJ Moore. And I think he is a guy that you can put into your lineup this week. Even with the lackluster start to the season, I think he is on an upward trajectory. So DJ Moore earned himself a spot in today's video at number 26. Right behind DJ Moore, we have Jakobi Meyers in a very difficult matchup. He kind of screwed me on a pick'em like 2 days ago now on Monday night against the Chicago Bears. I don't know what was going on with the New England Patriots offense. With Zappy, they looked absolutely horrible. I'm not going to necessarily question the play by Bill Belichick to put him in because I don't even know if he had necessarily a choice in the matter with the crowd chanting Zappy from the first drive of the game. But we did see Jakobi Meyers capitalize on a poor throw of Bailey Zappe, got up and rolled into the end zone. So he still gave you a good week last week, and he's given you good production pretty much every single week that he has played this year, giving us double-digit fantasy performances every single week, not falling below 10 points. So Jakobi Meyers is going to be in our top 30. However, he is in a very difficult matchup going up against Sauce Gardner and the New York Jets' stout defensive game this year, allowing 30.4 fantasy points to the wide receiver position. So Jakobi Meyers will be our number 27. At number 28, we're going to have George Pickens. The first week that we are comfortable putting George Pickens above Deontay Johnson. And as a matter of fact, Deontay Johnson is not on the video this week. I am a Deontay Johnson owner, and what I've seen is that even though Deontay Johnson is getting double-digit targets, it's very dink and dunk, short yardage passing plays, and George Pickens is getting all of the valuable touches through the air. So George Pickens is really the guy you're going to want in this offense, especially with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. So going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in a pretty difficult matchup where the Philadelphia Eagles are only allowing 31.6 fantasy points to this position, George Pickens is actually going to be the wide receiver in Pittsburgh that we want to start in this battle of the Pennsylvania teams. Right behind George Pickens, we have Brandin Aiyuk. I don't love putting Brandin Aiyuk in this video at all, to be honest with you, even though he's going up against the Tennessee Titans, allowing the second most fantasy points to the wide receiver position at 43.5. And Brandin Cooks is getting all the volume, which forces my hand to put him in this video. But we've seen very disappointing performances from him week in and week out. So even though I don't love this offense at all, probably the worst offense in the entire league, maybe ahead of the Carolina Panthers now. But Brandin Cooks is in a great matchup. He's going to get the volume from Davis Mills, so he's going to be our number 29 on the week. And the last player of this video is going to be Romeo Doubs going up against the Buffalo Bills in a very difficult matchup where the Bills are allowing 30 points per game to this position. But the key note here is that Allen Lazard, this ranking is if Allen Lazard misses the game. I think it's on Sunday. If he misses the game on Sunday, Romeo Doubs is going to be our number 30. If Allen Lazard is active, then we're going to throw Allen Lazard above Romeo Doubs in our rankings. But even though it's a difficult matchup with Allen Lazard down and Randall Cobb down, there's really no one else to throw the ball to here. So even though I'm very nervous to make this play, especially because I almost said Romeo drops. He had a lot of drop balls last week, which is more important when your quarterback throwing the ball is going to be Aaron Rodgers, because you lose trust with Aaron Rodgers very quickly. So Romeo Doubs coming off of a very poor performance last week with a lot of drops. He's still going to be our number 30 just based on there really being no other receivers in Green Bay. So this is our top 30 for week 8. I hope you guys, well, actually, let me know how you guys feel about these rankings in the comments below and tell me what I got wrong and tell me what I got right. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion, but this is going to be the ranking video for the wide receiver position going into week 8 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baltimore Ravens kicking us off tomorrow on Amazon Prime for Thursday Night Football. So hopefully you guys had a good week last week in your fantasy football world. Hopefully you got some wins. I know I did. I got 2 wins, and I lost my work league by 1 point with Michael Gallup allowing 0 points for my team. So it hurts a little bit, but I can't complain with my other 2 wins. So hope you guys are doing well. The whole entire point of this channel is to get you guys to your fantasy football championship game and hopefully win it. So thanks again for all the support. Go ahead and drop a like down below if you like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. But until then, I will see you guys next Tuesday. Peace out and good luck.